we still had love and support in my family and in my house, but it was a house where you knew that if you had an opinion that differed, you would be beaten. So, I have learnt at dinner, I had a choice. Was I going to be meek and mild and agree? And somehow I came out of the womb kicking. so I didn't do that. I would always disagree if I believed. Hi, I'm Annette Presley. I'm a philanthropist, a dream maker, an enabler, a businesswoman, a mother, and I love to help people. My childhood was not the worst, but it definitely wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. I had a father and mother who had grown up in challenging circumstances, and there was some violence in my home, and I had an operation when I was a little girl without an anaesthetic. I didn't know that this hospital, which has been outed since then, I'm one of literally thousands of little kids in New Zealand that had serious operations without an anaesthetic. And that made me develop some nervous tics, which have morphed in my life. And, they put me in some serious drugs when I was a little girl to try and get me to sleep through the night. But of course, back in those days, we didn't have any mental health supports. Today it is better, believe it or not, but it's still not in any stretch of the imagination incredible. But anyway, so yeah, you could say I had a challenging childhood. An operation without an anaesthetic is challenging. A violent father was challenging. A violent mother was challenging. My best friends didn't work. Some of them were in families that had never worked, had children to go on a benefit. I mean, I grew up in South Auckland, so we still had love and support in my family and in my house, but it was a house where you knew that if you had an opinion that differed, you would be beaten. So, I have learnt, at night at dinner, I had a choice. Was I going to be meek and mild and agree? And somehow I came out of the womb kicking. So I didn't do that. I would always disagree if I believed, and it almost became, the more somebody attacks you and wants you to conform, you have a choice to make. And my choice was to stand up and fight the opposite position. And I think that served me really well in life. So I would run away to the local golf course, and I'd sleep there sometimes. And, I'd collect golf balls and I sold them when I was 8 years old. And my father was a fabulous salesman. If you blame people for the bad, Tony Robbins taught me, blame them for the good. So what was the good that he taught me? How to be resilient, how to be resourceful, how to fight for good, how to fight for what I believe is right. And so I blame him for the bad. I don't like being in a violent house, but I also blame him for the good. I wouldn't be where I am today without my father, without my mother, without her believing that I needed to study all the time, without him believing, that I should believe everything he believed. And so conformity became something that I didn't believe in. And that really spurred me to take on board, when people fired me, I'd get upset, but I would work through it. When telecoms threatened us, when they shut us down 3 times, we fought. And why did we fight? I believe it was because I was taught resilience when I was young. And I came out, I took the bad, and I used it as fuel to create good, to create change. So I lived with a gang for about 18 months. They were called the 42 South. And they were actually retired, but, there was drugs. I never saw I mean, I saw someone get stabbed and, you know, but I was a protected girlfriend. And so, you know, I found a community, I found a family. And I know the gangs, you know, and I don't want to disrespect the gangs. And I know that they don't necessarily, they do a lot of bad stuff. So respect is not a word that goes with them. But they also have a community and a family that I needed and I wanted, that held me together for quite a while. And they protected me. And I hadn't had that. So I saw a lot of bad stuff, but the community and the family side of it and the protection and the loyalty was what I was missing. Does that mean I admire gangs? No, I see all the bad stuff they do. But I also see the good stuff that they do, and that they do bring a sense, you know, and I'm not saying that all gangs are good, I'm not saying that, but what we are lacking today and what creates our high youth suicide rate, what creates our depression rate, we all know is lack of social connection, lack of family connection, lack of community. And I think that's what that gang offered me at that time. And if we could find a way to make that happen in our communities today, I believe that a lot of our issues, our inherent social issues, would go away. I would never condone, you know, any of the really bad stuff that goes on, ever. However, there's good stuff they can teach us as well. That's how they create the communities they have, through the community, through the family, through the loyalty, through the support that I feel like we've lost some of. If we could just find a little bit of that back, and I'm not saying we should follow the morals of a gang, but that sense of it, is that not positive? Yeah, so my grandma, Nana Moo, as we called her when I had children, she was my inspiration. My grandparents had retail shops called the Willow Shop in K Road in Papatoe. And, you know, that's where I grew up in Papatoe. So Papatoe wasn't a bad area. It was just where I lived. You know what that's like. And, you know, I lived with a gang out there for 18 months. And when I couldn't find a job, she just always saw the best in me. I remember working in her shop on Christmas Eve, and she just would look at people and say, "This is my granddaughter. She is the best salesperson in the world." And in that moment, I knew I was. And she inspired in me something that nobody else could, because she really saw who I was. She really, in her eyes. And that I think, she was my guiding light, I think, in my life. My parents were incredible and I thank them for what they gave me, but she only saw the best. She lost 3 baby girls, and when I came along it was like, oh, wow, you know, there was nothing I could do that was wrong, and I might have done a few things wrong. But she always saw the good. You know, I remember when my mother threw me out and put all my gear out on the lawn, and then a gang came over and stole it all, and I woke up in the morning after sleeping in the garage and I went, oh my God, I've got nothing. And my grandmother said, hey, you know, come and move in with me. Well, it wasn't even a question. And I hated my mother because she just loved me so much. And what she taught me was that we all need that. We all need one person, or one person in our life that sees only the good in us. And if we have that in our lives, then we can have the inspiration, the motivation, and the resourcefulness to get through anything. So as a woman in business and in tech, you know, that's a challenging journey, because most of the people in tech are men. We all know that, you know, whether it's Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates, most of the men in the world that control the world, particularly in tech, are men. So, but when I started out, there were no women role models. So it was all about the amount of confidence I had, fake it till you make it, you know, being chased around a computer room by a guy. I never went to a meeting in the beginning that had a woman in it. Now, let me also tell you, though, when we started up our first tech company in Australia, I hired girls. They weren't necessarily graduates. They didn't necessarily have a CV that was full of a track record. And we created a company, and we used to be called Charlie's Angels or Models Inc. actually, because 90% of my staff were women. Why? Because they were the best for the role. So I would hire a young girl who showed herself outside of school to be successful, whether that was helping her family, helping her community, netball. She might have been ducks at the school. And within a month, I'd either fire her or I'd promote her. So within, I don't know, 4 months, Call Australia was 90% women. Why? Because they were the best for the job. So did I find it challenging being in a man's world? I actually found it supportive because I sought out mentors who helped and supported me. I got fired 3 times. So men weren't always my greatest supporters, but that company we created as, I guess, a Charlie's Angel company. And I found that if you make your own rules, if you seek the best, if you surround yourself with the best people, you can create anything in life. Is it difficult being in a man's world? Well, you can create your own world in my experience. You can choose, you don't have to be an entrepreneur like me, but you can choose who you have around you. You can choose the people that support you, that surround you, the people that lift you up, that don't push you down, whether they're men or whether they're women. Well, the media hurt me. I went through a very tough time when I went through my divorce. It was the hardest time for me in my life. Apart from when my daughter had pancreatitis and my son stopped talking to me for a while. But it really was the toughest time of my life. And I lived that in the public. And I can tell you, it is not great. And it took me to my knees. I remember looking at a cliff thinking, well, I could just jump off. And, you know, maybe that would be better than what the hell that I'm living through. But, you know, as Winston Churchill said, when you're going through hell, keep going. And thank God I did, because I feel so at peace and content today. And it taught me something. Why did I step back into this, doing this with you? It's because someone said to me, and I started thinking about it, what do I want to leave as a legacy? Who do I want to be truly in my soul? I want to be somebody that others aspire to. I want to be a role model. I want others to say, okay, I see a challenge, I'm going to step up to it, I'm going to break through it, and I'm going to help others, and I want to help others. So that's why I did it. I realised that if I kept stepping back, that I wouldn't be able to help others truly, and I wouldn't be able to make a real change. So that's, for me, that's why I stepped back into it. The dream is, you know, to help others. I believe that I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for some fabulous men in my life and my grandmother, and a belief in myself, and becoming a battler because others challenged me. And I want to help others. There are stars out there that we don't know about, budding stars, that maybe won't achieve their dreams unless they have someone that believes in them, unless they maybe have some funding, unless they can see a path and a journey to believe in themselves. To me, that's why we formed the Annette Presley Dream Foundation. Alyssa was already doing a lot of that. I've been doing this for many, many years, 10, 15 years, and helping girls become more. You know, I saw girls living in cars at Tauranga Girls College. I saw them being abused daily by their fathers, their stepfathers and their fathers. And I saw things at Mangere College and Mangere Intermediate and Mangere Primary and Tauranga Girls College that made me feel sick. And I realised if I didn't help, if I didn't step up, then how could I help to create change and create more stars and create an environment where girls could become who they want to become? So to me, that's what this is about, helping others to step up and become stars.